For extreme hair growth. Apply this twice a week. This natural remedy can work on many different types of hair loss problems, whether it's autoimmune, nutritional, or even an overgrowth of some type of fungus or pathogen. And you're going to be using the juice of onion. I'm going to show you how to supercharge that recipe to take it to the next level. If you're
Okay, let's jump right in. Hair loss, it's such a common frustration, right?
Yeah.
And you look around, there's so many expensive options, treatments. It gets kind of overwhelming.
Totally. You're wading through all this stuff, looking for something maybe more natural even that actually, works.
Exactly. Which brings us to today's deep dive. We're looking at a natural remedy from our source material. And it's a bit unusual sounding. Onion juice for hair growth.
Yeah, onion juice. Our source here is a YouTube video. It's from Dr. Eric Berg, DC, meaning Doctor of Chiropractic. And he's presenting this as a potentially powerful natural approach.
Right. So what we want to do in this deep dive is unpack those claims. Like, how is it supposed to work? What's the biology according to the source?
And what evidence do they actually present? We need to look at that. Plus, the methods, how do you do it? They even talk about supercharging it.
Okay, supercharging sounds interesting. But first, the elephant in the room. Or maybe the onion in the room. The smell.
Yeah. Raw onion juice on your head, it's definitely a concern.
But thankfully, the source tackles this directly. Their solution. Just wash your hair twice afterwards.
They seem pretty confident that deals with the odor. So, if you were thinking of trying it, that's good news, I guess.
Definitely. Okay, so let's get to the core of it. Why onion juice? What's the reasoning, according to Dr. Berg?
Well, the number one thing they point to is sulfur. Onions are apparently loaded with it.
Sulfur. And how does that connect to hair?
The video presents it as basically the raw material, like the essential building block for keratin.
Ah, okay. Keratin, that's the main protein hair is made of, right?
Exactly. So the idea is you provide more sulfur, you provide more of the basic stuff your hair needs to build itself. Simple enough logic there.
But that's not the whole story, is it? There's another compound they really emphasize.
Right. Quercetin, especially, they say, in high amounts in red organic onions, that specific type.
Quercetin, I know it as an antioxidant. What does the source claim it does for hair?
This is where it gets really interesting. Based on the video, they claim quercetin does a few key things for hair loss. First, it supposedly helps suppress autoimmune attacks.
Autoimmune, like with alopecia, where your own body attacks the hair follicle.
Precisely. That's the specific connection they make, potentially calming down that mistaken immune response that causes patchy hair loss. So it's not just building, it's protecting.
Okay, so stopping the damage, potentially. What else?
Well, beyond that, the claim is that quercetin can directly increase growth hormones within the hair follicle itself.
Like flipping a switch to make the follicle more active.
Sort of, like signaling time to grow. So you've got the building blocks from sulfur, maybe calming the immune system and stimulating the follicle's own growth signals.
That sounds like hitting the problem from multiple angles.
And there's one more thing they attribute to quercetin, its antimicrobial properties.
Antimicrobial, so like fighting off scalp issues.
Yeah, exactly. They suggest it helps protect the scalp from things like yeast, fungus, mold, stuff that can cause dandruff, or just generally create an unhealthy environment that might, hinder good hair growth.
Okay, that makes sense. So summing up the why, according to the source: sulfur for structure, quercetin for immune stuff, growth signals, and keeping the scalp healthy. Quite a list for an onion.
It really is. So now the practical part, how do you actually do this? The source gives a basic method.
Let's walk through it. Just grab an onion.
An organic red onion, they specify, apparently for the highest quercetin. Chop it, blend it up into a slurry.
A slurry, okay, like mushy.
Yeah. Then you strain that mush through cheesecloth. You just want the liquid part.
Gotcha. And what do you do with the juice?
Put it in something easy to apply, maybe a squeeze bottle. Then get your hair wet, they suggest, in the shower, and really massage that liquid into your hair, focusing on the scalp and roots for a few minutes.
Okay, massage it in. Then what? Just rinse.
No, not yet. You get out of the shower, dry off, and you leave it on for at least 30 minutes. 30 minutes minimum.
But they actually recommend aiming for a full hour.
Yeah.
And maybe wear a shower cap to, keep it contained and maybe help it soak in.
An hour with onion juice on your head?
Yeah.
Dedication? But maybe worth it if it works?
That's the idea. After the hour's up, back in the shower. Rinse it out really, really well. And then shampoo twice.
Right. The double shampoo for the smell. We mentioned that.
Crucial step, apparently.
And how often do they say to do this whole routine?
Twice a week. For about 4 to 6 weeks is the initial time frame they suggest.
And potential results.
Yeah.
When might you see something?
The video suggests you might start noticing some hair growth, maybe around week 3 or 4.
That's actually not too long to wait, potentially. Now, they do mention some evidence in the video, right? A study?
Yes, they bring up a study from the Journal of Dermatology. It involved 2 groups. One used onion juice on the scalp, the other just used water for 6 weeks.
Okay, a comparison. And the results they reported?
They were pretty dramatic, according to the source. The onion juice group, 86.9% saw significant regrowth. Wow, 86.9%, that's a lot compared to the water group.
Only 13%. So a huge difference presented in that study.
That definitely makes you pay attention. And they also mention a mouse study focused just on quercetin.
Yeah, they said that study isolated quercetin from the onion. The mice treated with quercetin showed hair regeneration.
While the untreated ones didn't.
Right. No regrowth in the control group. So the source uses this to suggest quercetin really is a key active player here.
Okay, it helps connect the dots from the whole onion to that specific compound, but they didn't stop there. You mentioned supercharging.
Ah, yes, taking it to the next level. Level 1 is adding rosemary oil.
Rosemary oil, how does that work?
Pretty simple addition, actually. Just add about 5 drops of rosemary essential oil to your onion juice before you apply it.
And why rosemary? What's the benefit supposed to be?
Well, they cite a 2015 randomized trial. Apparently, it compared rosemary oil directly against a common medication for alopecia.
What did that trial find, according to the source?
That the rosemary oil, used by itself, was just as effective as the medication, which is, a pretty bold claim.
It really is. Did they explain how rosemary oil might work?
They list a few things. It's got phytonutrients, it's anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, it stimulates the scalp, supposedly increases blood flow to the follicles.
So, boosting circulation, maybe?
Yeah, that seems to be part of it. And they also mentioned it can be helpful for autoimmune issues, which links back to that alopecia discussion.
Okay, so it sounds like it complements the onion juice quite well, based on their description. But there was an even cooler option.
Yes. Level 2, fermented onion juice.
Wow, okay, like sauerkraut for your scalp. How do you ferment onion juice?
Sort of. You start the same way. Peel, chop, blend an onion, strain out the pulp to get the liquid slurry. Put that liquid in a mason jar.
Okay.
Then you add about 8 ounces of water, 1 teaspoon of sea salt, and critically, half a teaspoon of raw honey. Mix it all up.
Raw honey. Interesting. Then what?
Cover the jar with something breathable cheesecloth or a coffee filter and just leave it on your counter for 72 hours, 3 days.
And things start happening.
Yeah, they say you'll probably see tiny bubbles forming by day 2. That's the CO2 from the fermentation kicking off.
Okay, so it's alive, doing its thing. What's the point of fermenting it, according to the source? Why is it better?
They gave a couple of main reasons. First, fermentation supposedly enhances the quercetin and other nutrients. The microbes involved can actually create more vitamins and basically make the beneficial compounds more potent.
Magnify the good stuff.
They actually call it magnifying the antidote for hair loss.
Magnifying the antidote. Catchy phrase. What else does fermentation do?
It changes the pH. The juice becomes more acidic, down to around pH 5.
And why is that good?
The source argues this more acidic pH is actually therapeutic for the scalp. It's closer to the scalp's natural, slightly acidic state, which can help, discourage unwanted microbes like yeast or fungus.
So potentially more potent nutrients and a more scalp-friendly environment.
That's the claim.
And applying the fermented stuff, is it different?
Nope, basically the same drill. Strain the fermented liquid through cheesecloth, maybe into your squeeze bottle, wet hair, massage it in, leave it for an hour shower cap. Still a good idea. Rinse well, shampoo twice.
Same routine, just with the fermented version. And frequency, still twice a week.
Yep, twice a week.
Yeah.
But maybe stick with it for 6 weeks or even longer, they suggest, for potentially more lasting benefits.
Okay, so topical treatments are the main focus, but did the source mention anything else? Supporting factors.
Yeah, they touched on a couple of other things they see as important for overall hair health, kind of supporting the topical stuff from the inside.
Like what?
Vitamin D was a big one. They really stressed its importance, saying it has multiple links to hair growth cycles and loss.
Vitamin D again. It seems to pop up everywhere. What did they suggest for intake?
Pretty high doses, actually, like 10,000 or even 20,000 IUs of vitamin D3 daily, or, getting significant sun exposure.
Wow, okay. Anything else besides vitamin D?
Just a brief mention of diet. Making sure you're eating the right foods to get the nutrients your hair needs. They pointed towards another video they did on that specific topic, so it's clearly part of their overall picture.
Right. Nutrition is always foundational, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Wow. That was quite the journey, all starting from a humble onion.
Yeah, we really unpacked the source's perspective, didn't we? The why, focusing on sulfur for structure, quercetin for those claimed immune, growth, and scalp benefits.
And the how, the basic method, the rosemary boost, the whole fermentation process, plus the evidence they presented, like that dermatology study in the mouse data.
It really does make you think about these simple, everyday ingredients from nature, doesn't it? How they might hold potential we don't always consider.
Especially when you combine that, traditional idea with a modern look at specific compounds like quercetin or processes like fermentation. It's an interesting blend.
What stood out to me was how the source tried to connect these simple ingredients to specific biological mechanisms, aiming for that multi-pronged attack on the problem.
Yeah, definitely. And it leaves you wondering, doesn't it, how many other common, accessible, natural things might have surprising benefits.
And maybe, for complex issues like hair health, how much value there is in combining approaches diet. Maybe supplements like vitamin D and these kinds of topical applications, like source suggests, could they work together for better results?
A really provocative thought to end on. Which parts of this deep dive stood out most to you? Or maybe made you curious to look into something further?